Just a quick side note before we begin, all the base work inside of this video is either done by me or is base work of my OC. I wanted to avoid using other people's art without permission or offending someone, so I did most of the examples myself, or I pulled one or two from old profiles of mine. All of the original bases and the artists that are not me will be credited inside of the video. That being said, in the background there will be a speed paint of me using a base myself, which is Valerina's pay-to-use chibi base, which there will be a link in the description to that. Let's get started! Let's begin with the fact that it creates a starting point. We all have to start somewhere with art, and maybe where you started happens to be bases. Anatomy is one of the hardest things to master, at least in my opinion, and bases help you get used to doing things related to art, as it gives you a good starter to work on top of. Clothing, shading, and hair are all examples of things that can be worked on top of a base. Bases can also help with character design. This can obviously help when you need to create outfits for a character. Given that a base provides the pose to an artist from the get-go, the design aspect of creating a character is much easier than having to think and create a base on your own. This is especially seen with things like adoptables all over DeviantArt, when they aren't breaking the base rules, of course. Maybe people find it lazy when you're using the same base over and over again in one image to create different character designs. But you're still designing a different character each time. It's for a fast, profitable reason to create characters that people may buy and then create or commission art of their own of that design. The biggest one, which is also the most controversial one, is that you will still improve. This seems to be the argument that I keep seeing in other videos, is that you won't improve. But you could sit here and draw the exact same thing over and over and it will still get better. It will be limited, but it's still improvement. You can also improve how well you draw in bases, create clothing, or even design hairstyles. Of course, let's move on to the cons with a counterpart to that. Improvement is of course limited. You may be able to improve on things like hairstyle, clothing style, or maybe even something as simple as line stability, but it's still extremely limited. You won't be able to learn how to draw different poses, or will have trouble with anatomy later on. This happens to a lot of people who excessively use only bases and never step outside of their comfort zone. Along with that, you will not fully develop your own style when using exclusively bases. Using a base means that you will be using either the style of the show it is referencing, or the style of the artist who created the base. You may be able to establish a style within this style, like hair or shading techniques, but you're still drawing over this person's drawing. It's like a coloring book, which may develop a skill in coloring neatly in the lines, but you won't suddenly have the skill in drawing itself. It also comes with an inherent stigma. Some people don't have good opinions on bases. They're known on the internet community as bad or lazy, but so are most inexperienced artists who are just starting out. A lot of those cringe videos seem to be on people who use bases, and judge them more on the base being used itself rather than the person using it. If you don't want the stigma getting to you, especially if it's one of your first times, it might be a better idea to do them personally and not post them if you think you can't deal with those assumptions at first. The fact that a person used a base does not make it bad itself. People seem to put this assumption on anyone who uses something like a base to do their work, no matter if they may use them often or not very often at all. Just like how art is subjective, base work is also subjective. The person who is using it may be inexperienced and could make it look messy and cringy like the worst examples out there. The base itself could be drawn with anatomy problems and look very off. Whether the art turns out bad or good does not have to do with bases themselves and should not determine a person's assumption on the base community. This is just a summary of my opinions on bases, and I hope you guys took something out of it. I at least hope that some of you don't see bases as a spawn from the devil anymore. I hope you guys have a good night. Goodbye.